The November wind had stripped the trees bare, leaving skeletal branches tapping like fingers against the old windows. Daniel took a shortcut through Willow Bend, a road the locals avoided after sunset. Halfway down, he saw an old house whose porch light flickered as if beckoning. Curious, he stepped closer then froze. The light wasn't flickering. It was blinking, in a slow rhythmic pattern. A cold voice whispered behind him, "You finally saw it, didn't you?" Daniel spun around. No one. When he turned back, the house was gone, just dead leaves blowing across an empty lot. The porch light blinked one last time from the shadows. To the pumpkin on Finch Road. Every year, Mrs. Harding placed a single carved pumpkin on her porch, always glowing, always perfectly carved. This year, the pumpkin appeared early November too, and its face twisted into something wrong. The smile too wide. The eyes too deep. Teenagers dared each other to knock on her door, but before any could, the pumpkin began to move. Slowly. Wetly. Dragging itself down the steps. One boy kicked it. It burst. Not with seeds, but with teeth. The next morning, Mrs. Harding's porch was empty except for a patch of blood-soaked leaves. 3. The silent roommate. Sana moved into a shared apartment with a girl she met online. Cheap, quiet, clean, perfect. Her roommate, Lila, was polite but unusually silent, always hiding in her room. She never ate, never left for work, never turned on the light. One night, Sana heard soft breathing behind her bedroom door. Lila. There was no answer. She opened the door. And found Lila standing in the hallway, pale as frost, eyes completely black. "I'm not your roommate," she whispered. "I've just been waiting for her to come home." There was knocking at the apartment door. Hard, urgent knocking. For the November visitor. In a remote cabin, Thomas spent the month grieving his father. On the 7th night, he heard footsteps circling the cabin. Soft. Slow. Dragging. He peered through the frost-covered window and saw a tall figure standing at the treeline, facing him. It visited every night, stepping closer each time. On the 13th night, it reached the porch. On the 14th, it pressed its face against the window. On the 15th, it knocked. Thomas opened the door, trembling, and saw his father's face, stretched unnaturally, frozen in a scream. Its mouth moved. "You left me alone in the cold." 5. The leaf pile. Kids loved the giant leaf pile that collected every fall in front of Mr. Carter's home, but this November, the pile was unusually large, big enough to swallow someone whole. One child jumped in and didn't come out. The others laughed. Then waited. Minutes passed. Too long. The leaves shifted. Something crawled beneath them. Something large. A hand shot out, not a child's long, rotted fingers pulling at the ground as if trying to climb out of a grave. The kids ran screaming. The leaf pile kept breathing. Late autumn has always carried a certain heaviness, an atmosphere where the world seems to exhale a final, chilling breath before winter takes over completely. November in particular is a month suspended between life and death. The last colors of fall fade, daylight shrinks, and the landscape grows colder, quieter, and more unsettling. This unique atmosphere is what binds all 5 stories together, giving them a shared pulse of unease despite their different plots. Each narrative uses distinctly autumn elements: bare trees, cold winds, leaf piles, early sunsets, and lingering seasonal traditions to intensify the dread and create a setting that feels both familiar and uncanny. In The Last House on Willow Bend, the November setting amplifies the sense of isolation. The road is stripped of warmth, the trees are skeletons tapping on old glass, and the entire world feels abandoned. It is this seasonal barrenness that makes the sudden appearance and disappearance of the mysterious house so disturbing. The story leans on the landscape's emptiness to suggest that something supernatural can slip into the world unnoticed, hiding in the cracks of the season when nature itself seems asleep. The cold air, the dead leaves, and the thinning daylight all become accomplices to the horror, making the encounter feel inevitable, like something waiting for the perfect moment when the world is least prepared to defend itself. Similarly, the pumpkin on Finch Road takes something traditionally tied to October and pushes it into November, creating an immediate sense that something is out of place. Pumpkins and carving traditions usually vanish after Halloween, so the early November appearance of the grotesque pumpkin becomes a subtle but powerful signal that something has gone wrong. This is common in Midnight Whispers style horror, taking seasonal comfort symbols and twisting them into carriers of dread. The crisp, chilly air and the quiet neighborhood streets contribute to the story's unnatural tension. Without the busy noise of Halloween crowds, the pumpkin's slow, wet crawling becomes even more horrifying, echoing through the cold night air where no one is around to witness or help. In The Silent Roommate, the fall setting comes through not in the wilderness, but in the domestic environment. November shadows fill the apartment earlier each day as the sun sets before many people even return home. The dark corners of the home feel heavier, thicker, and colder. Lila's presence, quiet, unnatural, and shrouded in darkness, matches the long nights and the way autumn evenings swallow daylight too quickly. Even the lack of light in her room aligns with November's seasonal gloom. The story leans on this atmosphere to make the realization that Lila isn't human all the more chilling. It plays on the dread that grows in late fall, when the world dims earlier, when silence fills hallways, and when something could easily stand just beyond your bedroom door, hidden by shadows that come far too soon. The November visitor embodies the pure essence of late autumn isolation. A cabin in November becomes a perfect hunting ground for supernatural presence. The world is quiet, animals retreat, and the woods feel watchful and still. The footsteps circling the cabin are amplified by the cold air, carrying farther, sharper, and more eerily. The frost on the windows, the empty tree-line, and the creeping approach of the tall figure all reflect the way November feels like the threshold of winter, a gateway where spirits, memories, and unresolved grief can slip through. The story becomes a metaphor for how November forces people inward emotionally and physically, making them vulnerable to the things that haunt them most. The fifth story, The Leaf Pile, uses one of the most iconic symbols of autumn, fallen leaves, to create horror in a uniquely seasonal way. Leaf piles represent childhood innocence and the playful side of fall, but in November, they begin to rot, darken, and hide what lies beneath. The massive size of the pile in the story hints at neglect, decay, and something growing in the hidden layers. The simple act of jumping into leaves becomes dangerous and terrifying as something else is awakened, something that has been using the leaves as a shallow grave. The cool air, the late-season stillness, and the quiet suburban street enhance the sense that the leaves are covering more than just dirt. They're hiding a presence that has been waiting all season for someone to disturb it. What unifies all five stories is the way they transform the natural aesthetics of late autumn into vessels of fear. The cold November wind becomes a whispering voice. The bare trees become skeletal watchers. Pumpkins become twisted, living things. Roommates become shadow dwellers. And leaf piles become graves. The atmosphere of the season isn't just a backdrop, it is a character, a force that shapes every terrifying moment. Fall is the last breath before winter's deathly silence, and these stories capture that perfectly, turning the quietest month of the year into something hungry, waiting, and watching. Point 1 of the defining elements of Midnight Whispers style storytelling is the slow burn approach to horror, a method that doesn't rely on sudden shocks or loud scares, but on a gradual buildup of tension that culminates in a twist so quiet, so unexpected, that it roots itself in the reader's mind long after the story ends. This technique transforms the conclusion of each tale into a chilling revelation, one that casts the entire narrative in a new, darker light. In these 5 fall horror stories, every twist is crafted to match that psychological, lingering dread. Each ending doesn't just conclude a moment of fear, it opens the door to something larger, more terrifying, and often unresolved. The result is horror that stays with the audience, the kind they think about when they lie awake at night, listening to wine tapping against their window. Take the first story, The Last House on Willow Bend. Its twist is rooted in disappearance rather than confrontation. Daniel doesn't enter the house, fight a monster, or uncover a dramatic secret. Instead, the twist reveals that the house which he saw clearly and approached never existed, or existed only for him. When it vanishes, the blinking porch light remains in a place where no structure stands. This minimalistic twist sparks terror because it implies a world where supernatural forces lurk quietly, appearing only long enough to acknowledge you, and then withdrawing, leaving you with a sense of being singled out. The ending forces readers to wonder whether Daniel was chosen, targeted, or warned, and whether the light may blink again in some other empty lot, waiting for someone else to notice. The twist in The Pumpkin on Finch Road embraces body horror but delivers it subtly. What begins as a curiosity, a strangely early, disturbingly carved pumpkin turns into a creature that defies expectation. The true horror lies not in its movement, but in the moment it bursts and reveals what was inside it, not seeds, but teeth. The twist suggests that this pumpkin is less an object and more a vessel. Something living has been birthed from a symbol of autumn harvest. The lack of explanation is what makes the twist so haunting. Where did it come from, why was it waiting, and what else has been growing inside the seasonal decorations people place so casually outside their homes? The unanswered questions linger longer than the scare itself. In The Silent Roommate, the twist reveals that the very premise of the story, the idea that Sana has a roommate, was based on a false assumption. The figure living in the room isn't her roommate at all, but something waiting for the real roommate to return. This twist taps into the horror of mistaken identity and cohabiting with something inhuman. The knock on the door at the end adds a second layer to the twist. Whatever is outside might be worse, or it might be the true owner of the apartment coming home to a nightmare. The ending is deliberately open, giving the reader no safe answer. This type of unresolved twist is a hallmark of Midnight Whispers. The horror is not neatly packaged. It expands, multiplies, and continues after the story ends. In The November Visitor, the twist builds around emotional vulnerability. Thomas is mourning his father, and the slow approach of the unknown figure mirrors grief itself, always creeping closer, one step at a time. But the final reveal that the figure wears his father's distorted face is not meant to provide closure. Instead, it corrupts Thomas's memories, turning something once comforting into a source of fear. The twist doesn't ask whether the creature is his father or wearing his father, it simply presents the horrifying image and leaves readers to wrestle with the implications. The creature's accusation, "You left me alone in the cold," adds a personal, unsettling emotional twist. It reframes grief as something that can follow you physically, a presence that demands attention even when you try to escape it. Finally, The Leaf Pile delivers a twist rooted in childhood nostalgia. The innocent, playful act of jumping into a leaf pile turns sinister when the leaves reveal they've been hiding a rotting, clawed presence beneath them. The terror doesn't end with the creature appearing, it deepens through the detail that the leaf pile continues to breathe even after the children flee. This twist implies the entity is not just reacting, it is alive, aware, and possibly growing. The long-lasting dread comes from imagining what might emerge from that leaf pile the next day, or the next November, when more leaves fall and cover whatever is hiding underneath. In all 5 stories, the twists work because they do not shout, they whisper. They don't close the story, they open a door. Midnight whispers, style twists shift the emotional ground beneath the reader, replacing resolution with unease. Instead of offering answers, they encourage the imagination to fill in the darkness with possibilities far more terrifying than anything explicitly stated. By ending on chilling, understated notes, each story lingers in the mind like cold breath on a November night, unwelcome, unforgettable, and impossible to shake. As the cold November night deepens, remember this: the fall season does not end with the last leaf, nor with the fading glow of porch lights. There are things that walk the quiet streets after dusk. Things that hide between the bare branches, things that wait beneath the dying leaves, things that watch from windows you swore were empty. Every story you heard tonight came from someone who thought they were safe, someone who believed November was just another peaceful month. But fall has a way of peeling back the world's warmth, revealing the shadows underneath. So when you step outside tonight, listen closely to the wind. Watch the corners of your vision. And whatever you do, don't ignore the things that only appear when the nights grow long and the world grows quiet. Because November remembers everything, and sometimes, it comes back for you.